When we read ancient texts like the Bible, we're seeing them through this thick filter of translation. We kind of assume one word in English just equals one word in the original language. But what if a special kind of dictionary could be a key? A key to unlock whole layers of meaning that are just hiding in plain sight. Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to use one of these biblical concordances and see what we can find. So just think about this for a second. The word man, super simple, seems totally straightforward, right? Well, this is where it all starts. This one little question shows you something huge. Translation always simplifies things. And in that simplification, an incredible amount of richness and nuance just gets lost. So, how in the world do we find these hidden meanings? We use a tool called Strong's Concordance. Now, this isn't your normal dictionary. It's way cooler. It's more like a master index. It takes every single word from the English King James Bible, links it back to the original Hebrew or Greek word, and gives you its core definition. Seriously, it's the ultimate decodering for these ancient texts. All right, let's start with our first case study, the word man. We're about to take this single, everyday English word and watch it totally explode into all these different, distinct ideas once we look at the original language. There it is, man, man. It's a word we use all the time without even thinking about it. But the original authors, they had a much more specific vocabulary. They didn't just have one word. They had this whole palette of terms to choose from, and each one painted a slightly different picture. And check this out. This just shows it perfectly. In Hebrew, the word Adam usually means mankind as a whole, a human being, which is connected to the word for earth or soil, Adama. Then you've got Iysh. This is way more specific. This is an individual male, a husband, a warrior, a champion. And then there's Enosh, which carries this idea of being mortal, of human frailty. So you always have to ask, which man are they talking about? A translator has to pick just one, and in that single choice, poof, the other layers of meaning can just vanish. Okay, so that's a common noun. But this gets even cooler, I think, when we use this decoder ring approach on people's names. See, in these texts, a name isn't just a label to call someone. Oh no. It's often a whole story compressed down, a description, or even a prophecy about that person. Let's take one of the most famous people, Abram. His original name, Abram, means high father, which is a pretty noble name. But later on, his name gets changed. He becomes Abraham or Abraham. And what does Strong's tell us that means? Father of a multitude. In that one tiny change, his entire character arc is right there. He goes from being a high father to the father of a multitude. His whole destiny is captured right in his name. And what's really fascinating is how these names are often built like little sentences. They're just combinations of smaller root words. It's like building with linguistic Legos. For example, the name Uriel, it's a mix of uwar, which means flame or light, and eel, which means God. Put them together, flame of God. Or Adramelech, that's Eder, splendor, plus Melech, king, so splendor of the king. Oholiab combines Ohel, tent, with Ab, father, and you get tent of his father. It's incredible. All right, now for what I think is the most surprising example of all. This is where we find some real poetry hidden in the language. We're going to trace the wild journey of a single word root and see how an ox, a physical animal, can somehow conceptually morph into an abstract number. Get ready for this. Okay, follow this journey with me. It all starts with the root verb aleph, which means to associate with or to tame. Simple enough. From that idea of taming, you get the noun eleph, an ox. I mean, it's the classic tamed animal, right? But here's where it gets brilliant. That same word, eleph, also means a family or a clan. Why? Well, what's a family? It's a group of associated people, just like a herd is a group of associated animals. It's this beautiful metaphor. But it doesn't stop there. That same word, eleph, also means 1,000. How on earth did that happen? Because the very first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, aleph, was originally drawn as an ox head, and it eventually came to represent the number 1,000. So you have this insane path from taming to an animal to a family, all the way to a number. It's just an amazing evolution of an idea. And that really just nails the whole point. The author Anthony Burgess said it best. Translation is not a matter of words only, it is a matter of making intelligible a whole culture. The way a language connects its ideas, like how it gets from an ox to a family to 1,000, it tells you something so deep about how that culture actually saw the world. So here's the bottom line. By using a tool like Strong's, we're not just memorizing new definitions. We're actually gaining access to a whole new way of reading, one that gets us so much closer to the original text and the mindset of the people who wrote it. So, what have we really learned today? Well, first off, one simple English word can be hiding a bunch of original concepts. We also saw that ancient names are basically little descriptive stories all by themselves. And maybe most important, words aren't just these isolated things, they're all connected in this huge conceptual web. It all proves that every translation is really an interpretation, and all it takes is a little curiosity to start peeling back those layers. And that really brings us to a final thought. Yeah, we've been looking at an ancient text, but this idea applies everywhere. Words are like little artifacts, and they're packed with history, with culture, with all these hidden connections. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets are hiding in the words that we use every single day?
Hebrews 10:38. But my righteous one shall live by faith.